Hey guys, PJ back with Exotic Car Hacks, and joining me today is Joaquin. I appreciate you coming by.
Thanks for having me.
So, for those of you at Exotic Car Hacks that may know Joaquin, you may have seen him, one, in the group, secondly, in our ads here at Exotic Car Hacks. He has been a friend and student of Exotic Car Hacks for now, what, like 5, 6, 7 years?
Yep, like 6.
Okay, so 6 years. It's been quite a long time, right? And a long journey. So that's why I've invited him here today to kind of chat a little bit about his journey and really what makes him a good car hacker, since you're on what, like 10, 11 cars?
11th car, I think.
Okay. 11 cars later, so perhaps some good tips for the rest of us to learn from. So let's first maybe, I know you, but these people don't, so maybe introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your background, your profession, things like that.
Sure. So my name is Joaquin, I'm 25 years old. I'm an e-com entrepreneur, so we manage stores for other people and sell on Amazon and Shopify and create software and all those things. And my family got to this country, to the US, in 2002 when I was 5 years old. We got here with nothing. I don't come from money at all. And in 2018, I was able to acquire my first car through Exotic Car Hacks. And really in that short period of time, from 2018 to now, I've got 11 cars. Sometimes up to 4 at the same time. And the crazy thing is that I was able to do that much, much sooner than I thought. Initially, my goal was before turning like 35, I think, to buy my first exotic, so yeah.
Okay, so that's a lot of cars in a short period of time, right? It's like 5 years, 5 years of hacking, actual doing it. So let's talk a little bit about, in general, before you joined the Exotic Car Hacks, like the old mentality, right?
Yeah.
What was your dream car growing up, and how far are you from that now?
So I fell in love with cars, I think somewhere around like 15 to 16 years old. So it's actually a funny story because I remember it like it was yesterday. I was pulling up to the highway in my friend's 97 Accord. And next to us pulls up a Ferrari 458. And I remember there was something about that moment that just lit up something in my mind where I was like, wow, like I really want to own an exotic car one day. So I went home and I started looking it up, and it turns out that you have to make some money to own these cars. But what I thought after doing all this research is that you needed to have millions and millions of dollars in the bank to be able to buy something like this. And after starting my business and seeing some initial success, but not the success that I thought I needed to buy something like this, and discovering Exotic Car Hacks, I was able to start kind of buying these cars. And the first car that I ever wanted was a 458. That quickly changed to Lamborghinis, and my first car was 2009 Gallardo. And now I've had Ferraris, I've had Porsches, I've had a lot of Lamborghinis. I've got this Rolls Royce that I got probably like a week ago. And just really at this point for me, it's like, what car do I want next? Because I know that I could buy it, not lose money, and get out of it whenever I want. So.
One of the things that kind of, I think, resonates with people, which they may see all this SVJ stuff now, etc. But when you started, I remember, with a white Gallardo.
Yeah.
Like that was
2009.
Yeah, it was a nice car. It wasn't extraordinary like the cars now, but it was definitely a good first car. One of the things that kind of made me appreciate you as a student of Exotic Car Hacks is you weren't so hooked on, like, this has to be a perfect hack right away. You were like, hey, I just want to take action and figure it out. I think that's one of the things that's made you successful in your personal life too, because I've watched you kind of grow in your personal business life. But can you tell us a little bit about kind of the first car, the Gallardo? Tell me what you paid for it, what you sold it for, what the experience was like, and what you learned going through the hacking process, because you went through that all by yourself. I remember taking photos and everything.
So I bought that car, I think, around late 2018. And I guess the first thing for me was just the uncertainty. And I feel like, most people feel that in business and just in everything that you're trying new, which is that, you might see other people out there doing it, but you're not sure if it's going to work for you, or you're not sure if it's going to work at all. But after doing enough research, you get to the point where you're like, man, the only way that I'm really going to see whether this is something that works or not is by actually doing it. So I did a bunch of research, and I ended up on this 2009 Lamborghini Gallardo, and I paid $135,000 for this car, and it had 6,000 miles. And I remember that I had this car. I drove this car for an entire year. I remember PJ telling me that, I had to keep the first one for a little bit so then I could upgrade faster. So I kept that one for 12 months, and in 12 months, I put another 6,000 miles on it. So think about it. I bought this car in 2018, and it was a 2009 car, so what is that, like 9 years old, a 9-year-old car, that in those 9 years, I think it had like 2 or 3 previous owners had put 6,000 miles on it, and then in 12 months, I put another 6,000 by myself.
And it's a lot, right?
Yeah, which is a lot.
Right. Most people wouldn't even drive that.
Yeah. And a lot of people think, these exotic cars, you got to drive them like 10 miles a month
like
or something. Yeah, like I drove this car as much as I wanted. So I basically doubled the miles in those 12 months, and I sold that car, I think, for like 128 or something, like 128, $127,000. Where when you do the math, you realize like, I just drove a Lamborghini for like the price of what like moms are paying for like a lease on an IS 250 or something, right? Like $500, $700 per month, which was absolutely insane.
But you know, I like that because I think today we have the markets booming, everybody's making money. You're gonna make like 200 grand on your SVJ, right?
Yeah.
But back then, and still I think this is gonna come back to reality at some point, and I think that was really hacking, right? Even 5 grand in a period of 12 months to drive a Lamborghini is a glorious achievement, right? I think today people have kind of changed their perception to you have to make money doing a hack or otherwise you're doing it wrong, which that was never the intention of car hacking, was to enjoy the car. And the first Gallardo I like because you went through that process. You basically weren't stuck on, I need to break even. You were kind of like, I want to move forward. Now, I remember then you had no loan. So this was the first time you were kind of going into this.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about how old were you? What was your situation then tax-wise in terms of getting a loan? What were the difficulties you faced getting that first exotic car loan?
Yeah, so I guess one of the difficulties...
Because you're a young guy, right?
Yeah. So at that point, I think I was like 21, maybe like just turned, I mean, let's see, 2018, I'm 25 now. I think I was 22 years old. So 22 years old, and I had like zero loan history. I mean, before that, I had like a 2013 Hyundai Genesis Coupe.
I remember that car.
A red one.
Like a red one.
And I had that car since high school. It was manual, it was really fun. Not as fun as the Lambos,
Shitbox.
but yeah. And so I went to get a loan and I had zero loan history, like at all. And it's crazy because you go out there to make a loan and you show these people how much money you're making, but a lot of the times they're not gonna lend you money if you don't have some sort of history. So for that first car, I had to put a little bit more down than I wanted to. But what that does is that it allows you to start building a history so that then now I'm able to get like $500,000 loans with like a text message, which is crazy. So, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty insane, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things though that I really appreciate about you, you went from a Gallardo, what was the next car? It was
a Huracan?
A Huracan, which was a big jump, right? And then from a Huracan, you went to, I remember you had GT3 RS, you had a
So after the Huracan was an Aventador SV.
Okay, so let's use those three for it. You went from a Gallardo to a Huracan to an Aventador.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate ideal dream scenario for people, right? Everybody wants to get to the Aventador. So, but I remember there was only 6 months between these kind of jumps. And the average person would take like 4 years, right?
Yeah.
But you really followed to the T kind of the model of how to get these loans and didn't really become a victim of I don't know how to. You're just kind of like, I'm gonna make this happen.
Yeah.
Can you share with people, what were your fears when you started hacking and how has that evolved over time? Because I'm sure at the beginning you were afraid of the fact that you had obviously like never dealt with this and now you're taking out a loan for a $500,000 car, right?
Yeah.
That's a scary thought if you're a normal person because you're not used to that. You go, it's 100K and that's 500 makes a difference.
Yeah.
So tell people a little bit, how did you overcome that mentally?
So I think it had a lot to do with, understanding the part of the process, which is choosing the right car. And so when you know how to choose the right car and you're able to do that research and you're able to negotiate it properly and you're able to see how if you have partners and you're able to learn from specific people, you're able to have tax incentives to do that jump from car to car, then it becomes really simple, right? If you buy a car that costs, let's say, $300,000, or in the case of the Huracan, I think for that car we paid maybe like $180 or something. And you know that car at that point in time is worth $190. Well, you driving it for 6-8 months and then selling it for $182, $183, that's not really something that's difficult. And so I think that the most important part, which is where a lot of the learning has to come in, is in the buying. Because if you're buying it properly, then it allows you to not be scared because yes, some people say, oh, but you have to pay interest on the loan, but it doesn't matter. You
can nickel and dime a Lamborghini.
Yeah. I mean, and what, you're paying interest on a loan where, let's say you buy a car at 180 and you sell it at 180, your interest on loan is what, $200, $300 per month? It's like, you're gonna pay to drive something anyways, right? Like, what's the alternative to not driving the Lambo? You're gonna have to buy something. You're either gonna pay full cash or you're gonna have to go lease something. So there's always a cost. But a lot of people don't realize that same cost, maybe a little bit more, maybe 10% more, a lot of times less, can put you in a car that's 10 times as better. So
but I think on top of just not only the interest, you also are young. How do you deal with insurance? Because this is something that scares a lot of people. They go, well, I'm going to buy my first Lamborghini. My God, my insurance is going to go like $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
But that's not true. And,
It's not true at
you're
all.
very young.
Yeah.
Guys, you're still young compared
Yeah.
to the average Lamborghini driver by far.
Yeah.
So tell people a little bit about how have you overcome insurance, and are you really struggling to get insurance?
So a lot of how insurance works that a lot of people don't understand is that the cost to insure different cars has to do with data that's out there for how likely or what percentage of accidents happen in these types of cars. It's super weird, but that's how it works. And so what happens is that when you have a Lamborghini or when you have these types of cars, there's not that much data for those cars. So that kind of helps you there. But for example, and then the type of model, right? Like I had an Aventador S Roadster once, and I guess because it's a convertible, that's a data point in their system that makes it cost a little bit more. But for an Aventador S Roadster, that was a 500, I think a 480 sticker car, maybe 500 sticker car, I was paying like $450 a month for that car. But that was the most expensive insurance I ever paid. Now, for an Aventador SVJ that I have, which is a 600,000 sticker car, and it's a coupe, right? So the roof doesn't come off, it's not a convertible. I pay $200 a month in insurance.
Right, which teaches you that just because it's more expensive is not automatically something that's more. And I think, again, this speaks to the lack of knowledge people have where they get scared of what they don't understand, right? One of the things I love about Joaquin is that, you know, he himself is an individual that's grown from nothing to build his company, et cetera. And he's very good at following instructions. And I think from the beginning, he's taken the course and followed step by step the process. Even in the insurance, the loans, he didn't try to reinvent it yet. And I think one of the things that I love about people like that is that you have to understand that the process has worked for the last 20 years. You're not going to reinvent it right away. You know, like you can make it adapt to yourself, but only after you've learned to make it work the regular way because it's been proven. So you don't have to go to trial and error. And he's been a great example of someone who's been able to do that without any type of issues, right? And so, you know, one of the reasons I wanted him to talk to you guys is because many of you are sitting on the fence, unsure about how to act. Should you move forward? Should you buy a car or not? And he's a perfect example of someone who didn't necessarily do anything extraordinary. He just followed the course to the T, and step by step, from the loans to the insurance to everything else, was able to execute by just simply following the course. And yet today, over the last 5 years, has been able to evolve from a Gallardo to an SVJ and multiple other cars like the Rolls-Royce on the side and things like that. And he has no problem still leveraging the financial system, the cash, and everything in between to making a good place hit. So first off, thank you for stopping by. I know I always appreciate your support of Exotic Car Hacks, and it's always good to see you grow, you know, with new cars, etc. And to you guys, again, don't forget, we're doing these profiles in an attempt to help you become better car hackers, so you hear the stories. And one last question for you, Joaquin. What was the biggest profit you've made on a car so far? Outside of the profit you're about to make, which is
the SVJ, that's going to be astronomical. I think it was on the, you know, it's actually a funny story because after the Huracan, and actually, before we get into that, the car that I lost the most amount of money on was that Gallardo. Like after that Gallardo, everything was either making a couple $1,000s or literally breaking even, which is awesome. But here's the thing, that first Gallardo, even though it was the hardest to buy, it was the one where, you know, I wanted to do a lot more things on my own as opposed to using the resources that were provided. And you know, I think maybe at the time it's because I was a lot tighter on money too. But as I kept progressing, I didn't even want to start finding my own cars anymore. So I just have PJ do it. And those cars have been the ones where I've either broken even or made the most amount of money on. But anyways, back to the car that I made the most amount of money on. So I bought that Aventador SV that you sourced that car.
Oh, the blue one.
The blue one.
I remember.
And we found that car for $365,000. And I remember being kind of scared, right? I had just came from a Huracan that was like 180 or something to basically double. I remember I was at Publix once and I called PJ and I'm like, dude, I want an SVJ. And you're like, what? An SVJ? That's going to be like impossible to find. But whatever, after like a couple of weeks, we found it, $365,000. And I bought this car with 3,000 miles. And again, like, I'm not careful driving these cars. Like, whenever I want to drive them, I'll drive them. I'll go to Supercar Saturday. I'll drive them whenever I want. And in 6 months, so I had this car for 6-7 months, I put another 3,000 miles on this car. So I sold this car with 6,000 miles for $385,000. So that was, what is that?
Double the mileage and 20K
Double the mileage, yep, exactly. And you know, it kind of makes me sad now because that car is worth a lot more. And I should have kept it. I should have kept it,
But everything the same. Now you wouldn't have an SVJ for 200 more. So a lot of the game is not about perfect timing. It's about execution. So thanks again for coming. And guys, there you have it. Another case study and another great car hacker. So we'll catch you on the next episode for Exotic Car Hacks.